Welcome to Flesh Editorials for April 14th, 2012. I am Russell Longcore, owner and editor of Dump DC. Flash Editorials is presented by www.dumpdc.com. Dump DC is the world leader in secessionist thought. We show the world that secession is the only hope for personal liberty and property rights on this planet. Now, I've got a great potpourri of editorials here. First time I heard the word potpourri was when Paul Harvey used to use it, and I had no idea what that was as a kid, and I finally had to look it up and find out what it is. But unfortunately, potpourri smells good, and most of these stories really stink. But let's get going. The Nation, Part 1. Thank God that Rick Santorum quit the Republican presidential race. But give the man his due. This guy did more with less resources, less integrity, and less intelligence than all the other candidates. After spending every moment trashing Romney, how is he going to turn 180 degrees and support Romney? Well, there's a simple answer to that, folks. The answer is that none of the stuff that he said over the last year was true or mattered even one whit. If Santorum was driven by deep convictions and unshakable morality, he could not tell America how horrible Romney was as the Republican candidate and then smilingly throw his support to him at the convention. Santorum is a mega hypocrite, but that makes him the perfect Republican. You folks probably will get to vote for him in 2016 because he'll figure that he's gone through the cycle once and now he's owed this. So watch out. The Nation, Part 2. In the ongoing George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin story, on Tuesday, his lawyers got in front of some microphones at a podium or someplace and said that they were quitting. Seems the Zimster had gone into hiding, was not calling them, so they quit. Then, that night on TV, the talking heads started decrying Zimmerman's erratic behavior. Well, my thoughts? I'm glad you asked. First, just because George wasn't talking to these lawyers doesn't mean he wasn't talking to some lawyers. I'm guessing he was trying to get better representation, which we find out now that he actually did, since he's now getting a guided tour through the Florida legal system. Remember that the new Black Panthers, had already put a dead or alive bounty on Zimmerman. I guess I'd probably disappear too. The Nation, Part 3, which is the next part of the Zimmerman-Trayvon story. Angela Corey, the Florida state attorney, stepped to a press conference podium smiling widely, angelically on Wednesday night about 6 o'clock Eastern, and announced that the prosecutors, would, quote, seek justice for Trayvon. Well, how about justice for Zimmerman? Now, they had already issued a warrant for Zimmerman's arrest on second-degree murder charges. At the time of the press conference, Corey divulged that Zimmerman had already surrendered voluntarily and was already in custody. Folks, if you saw this press conference, you saw a woman with her mind already made up about the outcome. By the way, the so-called Stand Your Ground law was written exactly for this kind of assault, the assault that Zimmerman got on himself by Trayvon, the assault that Martin put on Zimmerman. Martin didn't have a mark on him. Now, down below in the printed stuff is a link for the Florida law. Read it yourself. International, Part 1. Let's talk about the Middle East for a moment. Aside from Israel, which I consider to be a rogue nation entirely undeserving of American support, let's concentrate on the Arab world. Folks, from the western shore of the Mediterranean to the border of India, all along the north shore of Africa. I'm doing this backwards and I probably am screwing it up, but I don't care. All along the north shore of Africa and surrounding the Persian Gulf, all of the peoples there are some form of Islam. The conflicts, overthrows, Arab Spring, and the civil wars are Sunni versus Shiite, the two major Islamic groups. Now, Washington has no understanding of Islam and the tribal culture of the Middle East. If they did, they wouldn't keep doing what they're doing. So it blithely wades into confrontation after confrontation with its imperialism goggles on convinced that Arabs and all those other oily brown-skinned types would just love democracy if they'd try it. Hey, Washington, the Islamic world has no societal history like the Europeans do and the British do, and they will not accept the government of the great Satan America or any other infidel European nation. Sure, you can force them or bribe them for a time, but like the Afghanis, the Islamists know that you will tire of the fight, Washington, or you'll go broke and just go away. Then they will return to tribalism and carve another deep notch in the stock of their AK-47s. You know that stock and that notch. The new one will be the notch right next to the one they got for the Soviet Union. International Part 2. But Washington is not the great Satan, though, but it is the great whore. There is no issue for which D.C. will not play both sides against the middle. In Iraq and Afghanistan, Washington wages war against the Taliban and the so-called Al-Qaeda group, but in Syria, D.C. is working with them to overthrow the Assad government. And the only reason to overthrow the Assad regime is to weaken Iran. D.C. could not care less about the Syrian people. And they are sending vast amounts of armaments and electronics to the rebels. There is no behavior or action for which Washington is or could be controlled by a core belief and a conscience. The American foreign policy of the Middle East is about the dollar, folks. D.C. is doing whatever it takes to keep the dollar as reserve currency for oil payments. If D.C. thinks that overthrowing every Middle East government and installing its puppet will keep the dollar as world reserve, it'll do it. I just think that Iran will be the place where Washington finally gets its comeuppance. In business. According to the website zerohedge.com, the company Apple's market capitalization is greater than all of the companies in Greece, Portugal, and Spain combined. You know what you call this? A bubble. Apple's stock is trading at 17 times earnings. I know that's not crazy high, but normal stock trades at about a third of that. And this kind of market value is not sustainable. I predict that an awful lot of investors, private and institutional, are going to get hurt when the Apple bubble bursts. And that brings me to tonight's commercial message. Quick question. Do you know how much invested money it takes for you to earn $1,000 a month in income without touching the principal? The math is easy. $1,000 a month is $12,000 a year, right? But what kind of return on investment can you expect these days? Do you think you could get a 3% return? Some people hope for a 3% return. Maybe. The banks are paying what? 0.25%, 0.5% if you're lucky on long-term stuff. But let's use that number of 3% as a rate of return. You would have to have $400,000 in some kind of an investment that earned 3% a year to get yourself $1,000 a month. Now here's the next question. How many of you could live on $1,000 a month? Don't you need $3,000 or $4,000 or $8,000 or more to live on? And we haven't even factored the inflation rate, which is about 3% and is going higher. Do you have the 1.2 million or 1.6 million or for $8,000 a month, $3.2 million in investments now? No young families I know of have that kind of money. Only a few six-figure income earners that I know have it either. And in an economic depression, which we are in now, putting that kind of money away is next to impossible. But there's a business in America right now that throws off monthly income just like an annuity. It's my energy business. Think about your utility bills. You pay your energy bills every month, and every month your energy provider earns a little profit on your payment. Now multiply that times thousands. Folks, there's a huge amount of money in the energy business, and you could get paid just like the big monopolies. Imagine owning a business that throws off income every month for a life essential service that every adult that lives indoors pays every month. Now, to learn more about this unique business and see if this business is right for you, go to www.masterpieceenergy.com. Now, when you get to the homepage, watch that opening video that's about lifestyle. It's only a couple of minutes. Then look to the left and click on the little graphic that says Defining Moments to learn about this truly recession-proof business. In the economy, the number of actual new unemployment claims under state programs unadjusted totaled 381,875 in the week ending April 7th. Now that's an increase of 62,530 from the previous week. Yet the Labor Department reported 380,000 new jobless claims this week. You know, whether it's upside or downside, the government cannot tell the truth. But do not forget that over 381,000 people had their lives changed for the worse last week in America. Do not believe anything that either the Republicans or the Democrats are saying about this economy. Folks, we're in a depression, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. Sports, Part 1. Bobby Petrino, head coach for the Arkansas Razorbacks, got his ass handed to him this last week by the university. Seems that the old coach was riding his motorcycle and lost control and crashed on the side of a road. Didn't kill him, didn't really injure him that much. But then the shite started dripping onto the fan blades. Seems that Petrino had a passenger he didn't disclose. His mistress, 25-year-old Jessica Durrell. Now, I don't know if she got hurt or not. Apparently not hurt enough that would keep her from skedaddling before the cops got there. But where was that girl after the crash? Man, we don't know. She must have scooted for sure. We've learned now that Petrino handed a cherry job, and the pun is certainly intended here, in the recruiting department to Durrell after over 150 other candidates applied for the job. They were probably actually qualified for it. Then the old coach failed to disclose all this stuff after the accident. Once the athletic director and university president learned how much the old poonhound Petrino was thinking with his little head, they fired him with cause. Now that usually means that the fired guy did something that violated his contract, and in this case, likely a violation of the morals clause. His booty call cost him $18 million that he will not be paid now. The Razorbacks went 11-2 last season with a lot of starters returning for this coming football season. But here's the thing that I hate most. Petrino's married and has 4 kids. He betrayed them and humiliated his wife. And finally in this story, we down here in Atlanta are loving the fact that Petrino got the axe. He came to the Atlanta Falcons in 2007 as the head coach, and he quit mid-season to run for the Arkansas job. Atlanta hates Bobby Petrino, and now Fayetteville and Little Rock hate him too. And in entertainment, this last week I went to see the Hunger Games. I went to see them on Saturday. Now, as an action-adventure picture, this is very well done. But then you have to think about the underlying story, which is that some of the states of the USA tried to secede. Washington stopped them, defeated them, and is now punishing them for their insolence and tyranny. Their insolence and treason. It's Washington that's the tyrant. The fact that the despotic state would choose 12 children to fight each other to the death is much like Washington today. The power elite, regardless of party, have no compunction whatsoever about shoving 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds out into the desert to carry a rifle and get their limbs blown off. Then Hollywood makes movies like The Green Zone, Jarhead, and The Hurt Locker that glorify military service. The best part of this movie is the backstory, which is that this book trilogy is wildly popular with the young. That bodes well for the future. How, you ask? Young people today know that they are forced at the point of a gun to pay for a social security system that they will never get to use. They know that the national debt has been hung around their necks, not the baby boomers. All you have to do to get a taste of youth disillusionment is to go to a Ron Paul rally. Dr. Paul packs football and basketball stadiums on college campuses and shares a message of solutions, not just platitudes. Go see the Hunger Games, and when you get there, thank the ticket sales girl that you can see a great movie for only about $10. That's all for tonight. Thanks for watching. I am Russell Longcore. For all of us here at Dump DC, which is just me, good night and good luck. Dump DC, 6 letters that can change history. Copyright 2012, Russell D. Longcore. Permission to reprint in whole or in part is gladly granted, providing full credit is given. See ya.